जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदानंद जय भजन रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय भजन रंजन जय यशोदानंदन जय भजन रंजन जय यमुना तिरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे राम संकीर्तन की जय श्री राधा माधव की जय नरसिंह भगवान की जय पंच तत्व की जय षड गोस्वामी की जय गुरु परंपरा की जय श्री गुरुदेव की जय गौत ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God Narayana, unto Narayana, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Shri Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for joining. So today, in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 20th chapter, we'll be discussing verse number 5. It's a very wonderful chapter, wherein the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. Let's recite the verse. Tayo samvadato suta pravritta hyamala kataha apo ganga hivagagnir hare padambujashrayaha tayo samvadato suta pravritta hyamala kataha apo ganga ivagagnir hare padambujashrayaha. What wants to recite?
Hare Krishna, may I?
Yes, Paraj.
Tayo sambadado sutta pravritta hyamala kadaha abo ganga iva katnir Hare Padambujashrayaha.
In word-to-word meaning, synonyms. Tayoho, while the two Maitreya and Vidura, Samvadatoho, were conversing. Suta, O Suta, Pravrittaha arose. He, certainly. Amalaha, spotless. Kathaha, narrations. Apaha, waters. Gangaha, of the river Ganges. Eva, like. Agagnihi, vanquishing all sins. Harehe, of the Lord. Padambuja, the lotus feet. Ashrayaha, taking shelter. Translation purport Bhagwan Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Balaji Prabhu, can you read the translation and purport?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Saurabha inquired about the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. There must have been many narrations of the spotless pastimes of the Lord. The hearing of such narrations is exactly like bathing in the water of the Ganges, for it can free one from all sinful reactions. But the water of the Ganges is purified because it pours forth from the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is as good as the water of the Ganges because it is spoken from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. So it is with any topic on the pastimes of the Lord or the characteristics of his transcendental activities. The Lord is absolute. There is no difference between his words, his perspiration, or his pastimes. The water of the Ganges, the narrations of his pastimes, and the words spoken by him are all on the absolute platform, and thus taking shelter of any one of them is equally good. Srila Rupa Goswami has enunciated that anything in relation with Krishna is on the transcendental platform. If we can dovetail all our activities in relationship with Krishna, then we do not stand on the material platform, but always on the spiritual platform. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Gyan Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Tapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Supadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapatakabalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sagana Raghunatamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagananita Sri Vishakavatamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanasude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Tapra Vishyamo Achanam Prasaptam Sanjeev Bhaiti Krishna Salam Most Sorry, please bear with me a little bit. So this chapter is so wonderful. See, in the first verse of this chapter, just show first verse. It's in the purport. Just summarize. See, in the purpose, the appearance of the Lord as the firstborn incarnation occurred during the time of Swayambhu Manu, whereas present age is the period of Vaivasvata Manu. Each Manu's period lasts 72 times in the cycle of 4 ages. One cycle of ages equals 4,320,000 years, solar years. Thus, 4,320,000 into 72 solar years is the reign of one Manu. In each Manu's period, there are many changes in many ways. There are 14 Manus within one day of Brahma. It is understood here that Manu creates crystal regulations for the salvation of the conditioned souls who come to the material world for material enjoyment. That is the first one. The second one, see, in the purport below, Prabhupada says, as a devotee, Vidura showed by example that anywhere that Krishna is not honored is a place unfit for human habitation. A devotee may be tolerant regarding his own interests, but he should not be tolerant when there is misbehavior toward the Lord or the Lord's devotee. So that's what that indicates that Kauravas, the Dhritarashtra's sons, they lost the war because of being sinful in disobeying the instructions of Krishna. The third verse speaks about the history of Vidura. Vidura was born from the body of Vedavyasa, and so he was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to these devotees. The fourth one was Vidura was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places. That means he went on a pilgrimage. And at last he reached Hardwar, where he met the great sage, Maitreya Muni, who knew the science of spiritual life. And he inquired from him. So Shaunaka Rishi therefore is asking Suta Goswami, what more did Vidura inquire from Maitreya? And then we come to the fifth verse, where here Shaunaka is inquiring about the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. He was telling, there must have been many narrations, the spotless pastimes of the Lord. Hearing of such narrations exactly like bathing in the water of the Ganges, but can be free from one from all sinful reactions. See the purport of 3:22, 29 to 30. It's a very nice description Prabhupada has given. He says, any place directly connected with Supreme Lord is called Pitasthana. Pitasthana. That is, the place name was Barismati. Barismati is the capital of Swayambhu Manu. And it was exalted not because the city was very rich in wealth and opulence, but because the hairs of Lord Varaha fell at this very spot. See, when Lord Varaha took the incarnation, and he was flying high in the air, some of the hairs fell at that spot. So these hairs of the Lord later grew as green grass. And the sages used to worship the Lord with that grass after the time when the Lord killed the demon Hiranyaksha. See, Yajna means Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, karma is described as Yajnartha. Yajnartha karma means work done only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Prabhupada says, if something is done for sense gratification or any other purpose, it will be binding upon the worker. And if one wants to be freed from the reaction of his work, he must perform everything for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Yajna. So in the capital of Swayambhu Manu, Barismati, so these particular functions were being performed by the great sages and saintly persons. Very auspicious place, Barismati. See in the summary of 8th Canto, 24th chapter, once at the end of the previous Kalpa, a demon named Hayagriva wanted to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the incarnation of a fish at the beginning of the period of Swayambhu Manu and saved the Vedas. See, during the reign of Chakshusha Manu, there was a king named Satyavrata, who was a great pious ruler. So to save him, the Lord appeared as a fish incarnation for a second time. Now, King Satyavrata later became the son of the sun god and is known as Shraddha Deva. He was established as Manu by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So to receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, King Satyavrata engaged in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water. So once, by performing this austerity on the bank of Kritamala river and offering oblations of water with the palm of his hand, he found a small fish. The fish appealed to the king for protection, asking the king to keep him in a safe place. Although the king did not know that the small fish was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, as a king, he gave shelter to the fish and kept him in a water jug. The fish, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to show his potency to the king Satyavrata, and thus he immediately expanded his body in such a way that he could not be longer kept in the jug of water. The king then put the fish in a big well, but the well was also too small. Then the king put the fish in a lake. The lake was also unsuitable. Finally, the king put the fish in the sea, but even the sea could not accommodate him. Thus the king understood The fish was no one else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he requested the Lord to describe his incarnation as a fish. The Personality of Godhead, being pleased with the king, informed him that within a week there would be an inundation throughout the universe and that the fish incarnation would protect the king, along with the rishis, herbs, seeds, and other living entities in a boat which would be attached to the fish's horn. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. Now, King Satyavrata offered respectful obeisance to the Supreme Lord and continued to meditate upon him. In due course of time, annihilation took place, and the king saw a boat coming near. After getting aboard with the learned Brahmanas and saintly persons, he offered prayers to the worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and thus he taught Maharaj Satyavrata and the saintly persons about the Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. King Satyavrata took his next birth as Vaivasvata Manu, who is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Vivaswan Manave Praha. The sun god spoke the science of Bhagavad Gita to his son Manu. Now, because of being the son of Vivaswan, this Manu is known as Vaivasvata Manu. See, in the translation of 3:21-25, Rupa says the emperor Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has a seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans. In the purport, he makes it clear. Sometimes it is stated that Brahmavarta is a part of Kurukshetra, or that Kurukshetra itself is situated in Brahmavarta, because the demigods are recommended to perform spiritual ritualistic performances in Kurukshetra. But in others' opinion, Brahmavarta is a place in Brahmaloka, where Swayambhuva ruled. There are many places on the surface of this earth which are also known in the higher planetary systems. We have places on this planet like Vrindavana, Dwarka, and Mathura. They're also eternally situated in Krishnaloka. There are many similar names on the surface of the earth. And it may be that in the Bohr age, Swayambhu Manu ruled this planet. The word Mangala is very significant. Mangala means one who is elevated in every respect in the opulences of religious performances, ruling power, cleanliness, and all other good qualities. So Swayambhu Manu was celebrated for all good qualities and opulences. See, now let us see. See, the duration of material universe is limited. Everybody knows that, right? It is temporary. So it's a cycle. So it is manifested in cycles of kalpas. A kalpa, what is a kalpa? Kalpa is a day of Brahma, 1 day of Brahma. And 1 day of Brahma consists of 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. That is Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. So the cycle of Satyuga is characterized by Satyuga people were virtuous, wisdom was there, religion was there, everything perfect. And there will be practically no ignorance. Nobody was ignorant, there is no vices. And the Yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, the vice is introduced. Vice means V-I-C-E. Okay. All the bad qualities slowly getting introduced. And this Yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dwapar Yuga, there is even greater decline in virtue and religion. And the vice is increasing. And this Yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, in Kali Yuga, the Yuga we have now been experiencing over the past 5,000 plus years, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice. True virtue being practically non-existent. And this Kali Yuga lasts 432,000 years. See, it is very easy to know the duration of each year. You just remember the Kali Yuga, duration of Kali Yuga is 432 years. So Dwapar Yuga into 2, 864,000. Into 3, Treta Yuga, it comes to 1,296,000. And into 4, it comes 1,728,000 years. So 432 into 2, Dwapar Yuga. 432 into 3, Treta Yuga. 4 times, it is Satya Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, the vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the Yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as Kalki Avatar and vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees and commences another Satyuga. Then the process is set rolling again. So these 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise one day of Brahma. And the same number comprise one night. Brahma lives, in the life of Brahma, he lives 100 of such years and then dies. So these 100 years of Brahma, by earth calculation, it comes to 311 trillion and 40 billion earth years. So 100 years of Brahma, as per that calculation, for the earth calculation, it is 311 trillion and 40 billion earth years. So by these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable. But from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. So in the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas rising and disappearing like bubbles. Now, Brahma and his creation are all part of the material universe. Therefore, they are in constant flux. So in the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Brahma, however, is directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, in the management of this universe. Therefore, he will at once be liberated. He will attain liberation at once. So elevated sannyasis are promoted to Brahma's particular planet, Brahmaloka, which is the highest planet in the material universe, and which survives all the heavenly planets in the upper state of the planetary system. But in due course, Brahma and all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death, according to the law of material nature. See, in the 5th verse, which we are discussing now, the translation says, there must have been many narrations of the spotless pastimes of the Lord. Very nice, no? The Shaunaga inquired about the conversation between Madhuraman, and he says, there must have been many narrations of the spotless pastimes of the Lord. Spotless means not a single, if a white cloth is there, completely clean. Even as, in fact, if a small dot is there, it will be visible, correct? So spotless, no spots. So it's a beautiful verse in Bhagavatam. 12th canto, 13th chapter, 18th verse. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavana Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsyam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Param Jiyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Naishkarmyam Aviskritam Tashrinman Supatan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimuchen Naraha. It says, Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. This Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work, together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. So anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. So the word Paramahamsyam indicates that even completely liberated souls are also eager to hear the narrate Bhagavatam. Not the novice, the pure, small devotee just coming up. No, even the liberated souls, they also are eager to hear and recite Srimad Bhagavatam. So let us see how even demigods love to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from a wonderful pastime of Puntanam. I think you might have heard about this Puntanam. Once there lived a very ardent devotee of Lord Krishna by name Puntanam. He worshipped Guruvayurappan, Lord Krishna, with all his heart and soul. People loved him for his beautiful Bhagavatam discourses. See, there is a temple in North Kerala called Kottayur. The significant deity in the temple is Lord Shiva. The temple was kept open only for a few days during a year. So there were no human activities in that place for the rest of the year. Once, Puntanam reached Kottayur temple and had a bath in the holy river. He worshipped the compassionate Lord Shiva, felt very happy, and stayed there for a few days. He recited Bhagavatam every day in front of the deity, and several hundreds of people listened to his sweet discourse on the wonderful pastime in the 10th canto, 60th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, named Lord Krishna teases Queen Rukmini. You see, the Lord always plays a complete role in all the pastimes. Correct, perfect role. Let it be son, husband. So let it be as Parthasarthi or being a son, right? Husband, friend. He plays the role spotlessly. The Lord decides to play with a great devotee and his beloved wife, Queen Kunti, and wanted to listen to her. He playfully asked Kunti Maharani why she wanted to marry the Lord when she had better choices like King Shishupala, Salva, Jarasandha, etc. He's teasing, right? So hearing this, Queen Rukmini faints and Lord consoles her. So this is the gist of this chapter. Pundaram finished reading this part of the chapter and kept the bookmark at the end of the chapter so that he can continue reciting from the next chapter. Next day, to his surprise, he found the bookmark at the beginning of the same chapter. So Pundaram read the same part for the second time. Now this was repeated for the rest of the days. It was the last day to close the temple for the year. Pundaram finished the discourse and was returning from the temple with other devotees. But somehow, he left the Bhagavatam in the temple itself. So having walked some distance, suddenly he remembered that he forgot to bring Bhagavatam with him. So he hurried back. He crossed the river and reached the entrance of the temple, which was closed. Now he was all alone. He could hear somebody reciting the same part of the chapter from Bhagavatam inside the temple. Now, as he looked through the keyhole, he saw Lord Shiva himself reading from Puntaram's Bhagavatam. Mother Parvati and his other Bhutaganas were listening. Their eyes were filled with tears out of devotion. Now Puntaram stood there motionless and heard the whole recitation. At the end, Lord Shiva asked Parvati Devi, "Did you like the Bhagavatam recitation?" Parvati replied, "Yes, it was nice, but was not as good as Puntaram's." Lord Shiva replied, "Yes, that is true. I also like to hear Bhagavatam from Puntaram. That is why I place the bookmark again and again at the beginning of the same topic every day." Hearing this, Puntaram, who stood outside, was shaken up and uttered the holy name of Krishna loudly. Krishna, Guruyappa. So when he watched again, Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati had disappeared from his sight. So this pastime clearly explains how all the living entities, including the demigods, love this great literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the translation of this 325, which we are discussing now, the second statement Prabhupada says, the hearing of such narrations is exactly like bathing in the water of the Ganges, for it can free one from all sinful reactions. And in the purport, the beginning he says, the water of the Ganges is purified because it pours forth from the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is as good as the water of the Ganges because it is spoken from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. See, in Gita Mahatmya, which you can say, the Bhagavad Gita beginning, the introduction, you can see this Gita Mahatmya there by Shankaracharya. There are two verses. Malanirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrat gita amritasranam samsara malanashanam. Says, one may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water. But if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. This is Gita Mahatmya 3. Then he says in the fifth Gita Mahatmya, Bharatamrita sarvaswam Vishnu Bhaktrad Vinishritam Gita Gangodakam Pitva Punarjanmana Vidyate. One who drinks the water of the Ganges attains salvation. So what to speak of one who drinks the nectar of Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is the essential nectar of Mahabharata and is spoken by Lord Krishna himself, the original Vishnu. So Bhagavad Gita comes from the mouth of Supreme Person of Godhead. And the Ganges is said to emanate from the lotus feet of the Lord. Of course, there is no difference between the mouth and the feet of the Lord. But from an impartial study, we can appreciate that Bhagavad Gita is even more important than the water of the Ganges. We are coming from the mouth of the Lord, right? See, in the 5th canto, 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, wonderful prayers are offered by Srila Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsimhadev. So in 5:8, 18:11, Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj says, what happens when one associates with such devotees? He says, by associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda is all in all, one can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing of them, one immediately associates with the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj says, for a person constantly and very eagerly hears the narrations of the Lord's powerful activities, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead in the form of sound vibrations, enters within his heart and cleanses it of all contamination. On the other hand, although bathing in the Ganges diminishes bodily contaminations and infections, this process and the process of visiting holy places can cleanse the heart only after a long time. Therefore, who is the sane man who will not associate with devotees to quickly perfect his life? Lord Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, the seed verse 10.9, that the business of his pure devotees who are always absorbed in him is to glorify him. By speaking about the Lord, they not only become blissful, but by doing so, they distribute the bliss to all the other hearers also. It is difficult to understand the Lord on the strength of our own endeavor. But when we hear about him in the association of devotees, we will be able to experience his presence. The association of devotees is very important. On the other hand, mundane topics are not so pleasing. Since there are a lot of dualities in such topics, they have negative influence on the hearers. Sometimes such topics pollute one's consciousness, makes one agitated, anxious, morose. But topics of the Lord are always fresh and pleasing and could be heard over and over again. We are hearing this again and again. How many times? But we never feel bored so many past times, right? So also in Bhagavad Gita 12.19, while explaining about the word Mauni, Srila Prabhupada very nicely says that a pure devotee is Mauni because he does not speak of anything but the topics of Krishna. Therefore, he is called silent, Mauni. See, silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials. And the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. There is no difference between Lord, his holy names, pastimes, and paraphernalia. All are equally potent and are capable of cleansing us as well as taking us back home, back to Godhead. Lord himself assures in 4.9, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. That's why in 5:18:11 verse, the two words Manasam and Angajam, both meditating. Manasam means the dirty things in the mind, and Angajam means the dirty things in our body. The holy rivers like Ganga and the pilgrim places are so potent that they can purify the infections in our body when we take a dip in them or when we visit the holy places. But such process will take a very long time to clean our mind. On the other hand, Krishna Katha is so potent that it can cleanse the dirty things in our heart also, provided we hear it constantly and eagerly. That's why the sages of Naimisharanya, also glorifying the potency of Sadhu Sangha, say in Bhagavatam 1:115, O Suta, those great sages who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use. So, instead of getting entangled in mundane sounds, we should take shelter of pure devotees of the Lord, who teach us to be always in touch with the transcendental sound and help us to reach the spiritual world. See, by associating with Narada Muni for a few moments and following his instructions, Mrigari the hunter, he gave up his killing propensity and became so merciful that he did not want to even unintentionally harm the ants moving on the ground. Achamila, by hearing the discussion between Vishnu Dutas and Yamadutas, realized his mistakes and made the best use of the second chance that was bestowed upon him by engaging himself in sincere devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and all great acharyas in their line, simply by speaking about Krishna, vanquished all the demonic mentality from the hearts of millions and millions of souls. So hearing the Lord's glories is very important. So in the purport of 325, which we are discussing, Prabhupada says the Lord is absolute. There is no difference between his words, his perspiration, or his pastimes. In one of the lectures, Prabhupada says Krishna is absolute. Therefore, there is no difference between him and his name. There is no difference between him and his form. There is no difference between him and his picture. There is no difference between him and his topics. Anything about Krishna is Krishna. This is called absolute knowledge. So either you chant Krishna's name or you worship Krishna's form, everything is Krishna. So there are different forms of devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Mandanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. 7.5.23 Bhagavatam says, where Prahlad Maharaj is telling. So you just hear about Krishna. That hearing is also Krishna. Just now we are trying to hear about Krishna, Krishna Katha, right? So it is Krishna. So that hearing is also Krishna. Chanting, that is also Krishna. Shravanam Kirtanam. Then Smaranam. When you chant of Krishna, if you remember the picture of Krishna, that is also Krishna. Sorry. So you see the picture of Krishna, that is also Krishna. You see the deity of Krishna, that is Krishna. You learn something about Krishna, that is also Krishna. So this is the absolute. Krishna is absolute. See, in the purport of 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 36th verse, Prabhupada says, for persons who are not very advanced in absolute knowledge of the Supreme Lord Krishna, exhibits his transcendental pastimes, so they can simply think of the pastimes of the Lord and get the full benefit. That's why Krishna Katha is more important. Because they are not advanced, but by hearing the pastimes, they get gradually successful. Since there is no difference between the transcendental name and form of the Lord, there is no difference between the transcendental pastimes and the form of it. For those who are less intelligent, Prabhupada says in the purport, for those who are less intelligent, like women, laborers, or mercantile class, the great sage Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, Krishna is present in his different activities. Mahabharata is history. And simply by studying, hearing, and memorizing the transcendental activities of Krishna, the less intelligent can also gradually rise to the standard of pure devotees. And again, this which we are discussing the purport of 325, Prabhupada says, if we can dovetail all our activities in relationship with Krishna, then we do not stand on the material platform, but always on the spiritual platform. That is the last lines. No? Say. So material activities should be regulated to come to the spiritual platform. But if we do not come to the spiritual platform, simply some regulative principle on the material platform will not help us. Religiosity means to prepare the ground for being elevated to the spiritual platform. And just like it is said in Bhagavatam 1:2-8, Dharma Swanistishta Pumsam Vishwaksena Katasuyah Notpadayedratim Yadi Shramayeva Hi Kevalam. The translation is so wonderful. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality. So we should provoke attraction for the message of the Lord. See, in the teachings of Lord Kapil Dev says, no, we must understand the Supreme Person, Tattvataha, in truth. Generally, people are not interested in knowing about God or their relationship with Him. However, the entire Vedic instruction is for this purpose. First of all, we have to know God. Then we have to know our relationship with God. The next step is acting on the basis of that relationship. Krishna says that out of many millions of people, one may be interested in knowing the purpose of life. Human life is meant for this end. And if one does not come to this understanding, is no better than an animal. We not only have to understand God and our relationship with Him, but also how to act in that relationship. Very important. In this way, we can perfect our lives. When one is a Siddha, one understands himself. That is, one understands Aham Brahmasmi. I am not this body. This is Brahman realization. The Brahma Bhuta platform. When one attains this stage, he becomes very happy. So we must progress beyond this and come to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. On that platform, there is variety and ananda, bliss. So we are seeking spiritual variety. And if we do not enter the spiritual world, we will again fall down into the material atmosphere. So the varieties of spiritual world are mentioned in Brahma Samhita 5.29-30. Chintamani prakara satma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhir avipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shatasam brahma sevyamanam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Venam kvanantam aravinda dalayataksham Barhavatam samatitam buddha sundarangam Kandarpakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. He says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, the blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. See, the Vedanta Sutra says that spirit is by nature joyful. The soul is joyful. That's why we want to feel happy always, right? So because we are spirit, we are always hankering after joyous life. But because our expression is through this material mind and body, it is not being fulfilled. So as soon as you stand on the spiritual platform, you actually stand on the platform of joyous life. That is the immediate gain. Cheto darpana marjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam. Immediately. I'm sorry. See, devotees are generally attracted by the narratives of the pastimes of the Lord. And even though they do not do any austerities or meditation, this very process of hearing attentively, very important point to understand, hearing attentively and with rapt attention about the pastimes of the Lord, will endow them with innumerable benefits. What benefits? Like wealth, fame, longevity, and other desirable aims of life, just by hearing Krishna. So if one continues to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narratives of the pastimes of the Lord, at the end of this life, one is sure to be transferred to the eternal transcendental abode of the Lord. Thus, hearers are benefited both ultimately and for as long as they are in this material world. So that is the supreme, sublime result of engaging in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to spare some time and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source. So what is the beginning of devotional service? To spare some time and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source, from the Acharyas coming in the disciplic succession. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended 5 items of devotional service, namely to serve the devotees of the Lord, to chant Hare Krishna, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, to worship the deity of the Lord, and to live in a place of pilgrimage. 5 things. So Lord Chaitanya recommended 5 items of devotional service. What is that? To serve the devotees of the Lord, number 1. 2, to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Number 3, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Number 4, to worship the deity of the Lord. Number 5, to live in a place of pilgrimage. So just performing these 5 activities can deliver one from the miserable condition of material life. So let's stop here. Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Vancha kalpatarubhya kripa sindhu bhayavacha. Patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. If you have any questions or anything to share, please. So many things can be told about this, no? But Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Shanti Mataji. Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Ajit Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Manisha Mataji. Thank you, Hare Krishna. If you have any questions, it's fine. Or anything you liked, which you feel that you can take back and you use, put it into practice in your daily life. Any
Prabhuji,
important point?
can you please send the lectures of Bhagavatam from Acharyas?
There are many, Mataji.
How to select one?
Okay, see, because it's one ISKCON Desire Tree. Okay. There, ISKCON Desire Tree. I'll send you the link. Links so that you can see. Yeah, man, and in fact, if you read the purport of Prabhupada, it's itself like a lecture. It's so beautiful. No, you don't feel. The moment you start reading purports of Prabhupada, you cannot keep quiet. You become so excited. You want to share it with others. That is the beauty of Srila Prabhupada. And a lot of small books of Prabhupada are there. I send you the link of Veda Base. There are so many books, small books. By reading that also, you will get enlightened, Mataji.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Sure, Mataji.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Yes.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes.
The story of bookmark was very nice, Prabhuji.
Yes, Kundanam story. Yes.
Putana.
It's actually a very nice story, correct. And that chapter is so wonderful. If you go through that chapter, no? Krishna is teasing Rukmini. I just it was just told a small thing, just a summary, but if you go through that chapter, how he teases Rukmini. He says, why did you choose me? There are so many better people like Shishupal. There are some land. Like this, he was talking in Rukmini, she fainted. Oh, see, it's so wonderful. And this is what Lord Shiva liked, this part. That's why he wanted to hear it again and again. So he used to keep that in the same spot again. And so whenever Kundaman comes, he was reciting the same thing again.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, very nice pastime. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
प्रभु जी रुक्मिणी जी ने कुछ नहीं कहा. हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी.
Yes, Mataji.
रुक्मिणी जी ने कुछ भी नहीं कहा फिर.
नहीं वो परेशान हो गई. ऐसा क्यों बोल रहे हैं? जो इतना प्यार कर रहे हैं उसको, उसके बारे में वो ऐसा बोल रहे तो कैसा चलेगा? सो फेंट हो गई. वो चैप्टर पढ़िएगा माताजी, बहुत अच्छा है. हरे कृष्णा. थैंक यू आप थैंक यू. हरे कृष्णा. Aparna, I think Prabhuji, you are Ajit Prabhu. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Shantagovanda Padas Prabhu.
Very nice lecture. I think you should take care of your health, Prabhu. I think you're not keeping well today.
It's okay, Prabhu, it's fine. Yeah, but when I recite the verses and all, then I don't feel about that. Otherwise, we keep it quiet, it will be more difficult. So it's better to hear class. Thank you, bro. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Swami Prabhu Mataji, thank you. Balaji Prabhu, thank you very much. Chindu Devi Mataji, thank you very much. Thank you. Hare Krishna. If nothing is there, please.
Thank
Close,
you,
Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ajit Prabhu, thank you very much. You wanted to speak something? We're not able to hear you. आपका वॉइस नहीं आ रहा है. साउंड नहीं आ रहा आपका. No, mute भी में नहीं है, but the sound is not coming though. I cannot hear you. Is something wrong in the network or something? I don't know. It's okay. Maybe you can speak. Call me and we can speak. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jai Hari Bol. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.